Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, That Model Railway Guy, and welcome to a rolling stock review today where I'll be taking a look at the LNER Coronation Coaches from Hornby, including the Beavertail observation car. Now, this video has very kindly been sponsored by D-Rails. A big thank you to them for supporting the channel, and there'll be more about them later on. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. There's lots more model railway reviews, tutorials and layout builds to enjoy, so definitely click that subscribe button if you'd like to see more. Right now though, I'm very excited to be taking a look at these streamlined coronation coaches. They look absolutely incredible, so let's jump straight into the review. So these are the Hornby LNER Streamlined Coronation Coaches, announced back in January of 2022 and released in November of 2024. We've got a variety of coaches in this range, which is mainly comprised of the twin articulated coaches, which come in a pack together. There's enough of these to build up an entire rake, with things like first and third class represented, as well as a kitchen car and a brake coach too. Available separately is the observation coach, which I'll also be covering today, and this would have been attached to the rear of the train. Hornby have packed a lot into these coaches with fully decorated interiors as well as lighting and capacitors to prevent any flickering. We also have special magnetic couplings and corridor connections too, which I'll show you in more detail later on. But what are the all-important prices? Well, the twin packs originally had an RRP of £109.99, but Hornby did increase that price to £149.99, although if you pre-ordered like I did, then you were locked in at the original price. And of course, at the retailers, there was a slight discount too, with the twin sets being sold for around £135. It was a similar story with the observation coach too, with this originally having an RRP of £66.99, subsequently being increased to £81.99, and at the retailers it was sold for around £74. Obviously, these are expensive, but they're not exactly bog standard coaches. They're definitely something special. Considering that Bachmann are currently selling their Mark I coaches for around £60 to £70 individually, in comparison, the twin sets for £135 here come out at around the same price per coach. I would argue that you're getting more for your money with these, but that's just my opinion. But for you to make your own mind up, let's take a detailed look at these coaches in close-up. I'm going to start off with the articulated coaches first, as these will make up the bulk of a rake of coaches. As I mentioned, these come in a twin set, and that is because they share a common bogie between two carriages. This is something the LNER like to do, for example on the quad art sets, and you can see a modern version of this on some of the Eurostar trains too. As a result, this does give the coaches a much sleeker and more streamlined appearance, with each coach looking less like a block and more like a continuous streak. The connection for these is actually really simple, as they just slot together. It does seem to work best if you go in at a bit of an angle and then it all just stays in place. And this also appears to be a kinematic connection of some sort too, which allows the train to still go around tighter train set curves. So yeah, I really have to applaud Hornby on the design of this specific element. It would have been very easy to create something overly complicated and fiddly, but what they've come up with is actually a really elegant solution that works really well. You'll see on the layout later on that this doesn't cause any problems at all, and yet they're still easy enough to disconnect should you want to take them off the layout. So yeah, really well done to Hornby there, and this is already looking like a top quality product. Of course, with these carriages being streamlined, there isn't a lot of detail to focus on, but the decoration is where the coronation coaches really shine. Quite literally, we have this lovely silver lining around all of the panels, and I think this must have been done with some sort of foil because it looks absolutely superb. I mean, Hornby had to get this right because there's so much of it used across each carriage, but they really have delivered here. And it's not just the lining that features this look, we also have the coronation lettering down the side of each carriage too, which again looks fantastic. Then at one end of the coach we have the LNER lettering, which can be seen here, and then down at the opposite end is the individual coach number. The doors also have larger numbers on them to denote the class, and then we have the coach letters too. And like I said, you can build up a full rake of these from A through to H. Even the guard's door uses this silver lettering, which is really impressive considering how small it is. And yeah, I'm really glad that Hornby went for this over some silver metallic paint. This looks so much better, and it really makes the coaches stand out. So again, another indication that they've really put a lot of time, thought, and effort into these. Of course, all this is set against that two-tone blue background, which is really nice in itself. This is definitely a very special livery, and of course it's going to look great paired with a Hornby A4 in the garter blue. The underframe continues the streamlined look of these coaches, with the fairings hiding much of the detail here. You can see we've got some panels and access hatches modelled, which is really nice though. And interestingly, if we turn a coach over, you can see there's actually more detail behind this outer fairing. That implies that maybe Hornby have intentions of doing the later versions of these coaches in the future from when they ran without so much of the streamlining. The detailing around the bogies is done very well too, with some nice riveting there and those tiny numbers printed above the wheels as well. And speaking of the wheels, these are painted in a nice red with the white rim, which again is another nod to the A4 garter blue livery. Moving round to the end of the coaches then, we have these corridor connections on the back, but you might notice that the pipework here is simply moulded on and is a bit simple. However, this is because the whole end is actually removable. So this is how the coaches come out of the box, but in the detail bag we actually get a completely different set of streamlined connectors, which is a representation of the covers that these coaches ran with in reality. These are magnetic, so swapping them out is really simple. You literally just pull one off and pop the other on. Again, this is more evidence of really smart design by Hornby, where they've given us options, they've made it super easy to change yourself without damaging little bits of detail, and most importantly, it looks great. Yeah, you do get a little bit of a join around the edges, but in my opinion, I'm happy to live with that, and from a reasonable viewing distance, this isn't an issue, especially when the train is in motion. Also in the detail bag, we get some nice end doors if you wanted to fit those into the corridor connectors, and we get some magnetic couplings too. The models do come with the standard tension lock couplings pre-fitted, but if you're going to use the streamlined ends, you'll also want to fit the magnetic couplings as well. These will bring the two sets of coaches closer together for a much more streamlined look, and being NEM compatible, these fit in exactly the same way as all other standard couplings. We don't get sprung buffers here given the complexity around the end, but they are at least made of metal, and they do have that nice half-pattern shape to them, which I've seen on other LNER coaches. When it comes to the roofs of the coronation coaches, there's not really much going on here. We have got a few separately fitted vents at the ends, but generally, with all the streamlining going on, the prototype coaches were designed to create as little drag as possible, and so the models replicate this. The grey colour of the roof is really nice and consistent though, and I have to say it matches the blue livery really well. So that's the articulated coaches, but I know you're all excited to see the Beavertail, so let's take a look at that too. Right, before we crack on with the rest of the video, I do just want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Derails, who are a fantastic model shop that I've been using for years now. Whether you're after your next loco, some scenic bits, or just the essentials like track and glue, they've got pretty much everything covered. What I love about Derails is that they provide the enthusiasm and the helpful attitude of your local model shop, mixed in with the convenience of ordering online. Every model gets checked before it's sent out, which gives you the peace of mind that it's going to run right straight out of the box. And if anything does go wrong, their team are super helpful and genuinely care about sorting it out. And don't forget, they offer free delivery on orders over £20. I know I mention this all the time, but I was recently talking to someone who didn't know about their free delivery. So I'm going to keep talking about it until everyone knows. But yeah, whatever you're working on, Derails can probably help you make it happen. So head over to derails.co.uk or use the link that I put down in the description. Massive thanks to Derails for sponsoring this one. And now let's get back to the video. And here it is, the Coronation Observation Coach. And as many of you know, this is often referred to as the Beavertail because, well, it looks kind of like a beaver's tail. Again, like the articulated coaches, this is absolutely stunning, even more so because of that special shape we get towards the back. There's lots of the silver lining present again, which matches the rest of the coaches really well, and this is the big benefit of Hornby doing all these coaches in one go, is that everything looks really consistent. Like I said, that sloped roof at the back is really distinctive. It's actually incredible how it curves down, and I can imagine Hornby had a real challenge getting the geometry of this whole area to look right. The window itself is impressive enough, with so many different curves and shapes going on here, and again there's more of that silver lining which makes this area stand out even more than it already does. On that note, we've got the coronation lettering written across the rear of the coach here too, and you'll also notice that we have two tail lights as well. These do actually work and both have a red LED installed into them. I'll show you them working later on, but yeah, more evidence that Hornby have really put their all into these coaches. And this time we do have sprung metal buffers at this end of the coach, and fully circular ones as well, considering that this is the end of the train. The streamlined fairing continues all the way down as well, wrapping around the bottom of the coach here, and you also get a nice cosmetic screw link coupling as well. Speaking of couplings, you can add a tension lock to the back of this if desired. It isn't a NEM compatible version though, because it does have to duck under that fairing. But honestly, I think it's great of Hornby to include this as an option, but I expect the vast majority of people probably won't be putting this to use. The detail bag also includes magnetic couplings, matching those on the articulated coaches, as well as some pipework, an end door for the corridor connector, and also a streamlined end for the coach too. It is slightly different to the articulated ones. Here it's just the corridor connection that can be removed, but again this is all magnetic, so the streamlined end can still easily be popped in position. I mean, overall this coach is stunning and Hornby have done a great job. The shape, the look, the decoration, every single aspect of this is absolutely top notch. And that doesn't just go for the Beavertail here, but the articulated coaches too. But there is one big aspect that I haven't really covered yet, and that is the lighting and the interiors. So with the observation coach on the rolling road, I can provide power to the wheels and we see the LEDs light up inside. It's really great to have this feature, and it's certainly worth it too, considering that Hornby really have gone to town on the Art Deco interior. The yellow armchairs in the main area definitely stand out with that fantastic pattern all over them. By the rear window, we can see this surface along here has more printed detail to imply a wooden texture rather than just painting it brown. The corridor section down the far end also uses this same technique too, and there's lots of other details throughout the coach which really come alive when lit up. Not forgetting the twin tail lamps too, you can see these are both now lit up in a nice red colour to signify this is the end of the train. We have pickups on all of the wheels, so the lighting is getting a decent amount of power, but when I remove the coach from the rolling road, the capacitor kicks in to give us a few extra seconds of backup power. Another great touch to prevent flickering, and the capacitors are well hidden away so they don't spoil the interior detail in the slightest. Similarly, the articulated coaches are finished to the same high standard as well. Each of these has its own little individual touches, and it's easy to see the clear difference between the third class coaches and first class. A minor criticism would be that there doesn't seem to be any way to switch the lights on and off using a magnet, which has been the case with other coaches in the past. I imagine most people are going to want to keep the lights on anyway, but as with the couplings, it's always nice to have the option. However, I will say that the lighting is at a really nice level. It's not overpowering, but it's enough for it to make a difference. And of course, if you were wondering, these articulated coaches do have a capacitor fitted as well to prevent any flickering. Another thing is that these coaches don't have removable roofs either, so if you do want to fit passengers, you will have to take the entire body off. Personally, I can forgive that. Considering the complexity of the different end arrangements, I think having a removable roof as well would probably compromise the overall structure and durability of the model. Not to mention that it would be impossible to do on the observation coach without having some sort of split there, which I think would spoil the overall appearance. I think I've pretty much covered everything now though, and all that's left to do is to get these running on the layout, which I'm pretty sure you're all eager to see. So let's head over to Pitley Steam Railway and put these coaches to the test. Here we are then with the LNER Coronation Coaches on the layout, and don't they just look fantastic here in the station. Naturally, I've paired these up with Mallard. I kind of had to really, considering this loco and the coach set were made for each other. And as the train gets going, you can see that I've added all the streamlined connectors to the coaches to create that single unbroken line of carriages. It really makes a huge difference, and it's so impressive how well the close coupling works, giving the coaches that continuous look while still allowing them to run round corners. So I think what I'll do now is just shut up for a bit and let you enjoy the sight of these coaches on the layout. So once again, Hornby have shown that they can produce some really brilliant stuff when they want to. There is no other word to describe these coaches than outstanding, and honestly I hope Hornby get a lot of recognition not only for taking on these coaches but doing them to such a high standard. It's not all about looks though, and as you can see these run really well, so they're not just designed as shelf queens, they can be put through their paces on a layout. As I mentioned before, having the different ends to create a more streamlined look is superb, and it works incredibly well without causing any derailments or issues. The fact that they're so easy to install for modelers of any experience level is a massive bonus too. They're not delicate or fiddly at all, and it's not like the Black 5 with the removable lamps, which Hornby said was really only to be attempted by more experienced modelers. This is something that can be done by a complete beginner, and again, Hornby should be applauded for coming up with a simple design which works really well. All round, these are just a fantastic set of products, so credit where credit is due. These are some of the best coaches I've ever seen, and I say that at a time where all manufacturers are starting to put more and more effort into their rolling stock, so that really is quite an achievement. What do you think of the LNER Coronation Coaches though? Do they live up to the hype for you? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more reviews like this in the future, or just more general model railway content. That's it for today though, so thank you so much for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!